My sister stole my wedding dress and married my fiancé for his money while I was overseas for a design competition. My parents even approved. When I got back, she smugly introduced him as her husband, but I just had to laugh. Because the man she actually married was. Hello everyone. Thank you for being here with me today. Before I begin my story, I'd love to know which city you're joining us from. Please feel free to share in the comments. Now, let me take you into this story. My world, the one I was born into, was supposed to be simple. It was supposed to be filled with the scent of fine fabrics, bolts of silk and cashmere, the sharp, clean smell of graphite from my father's design studio, Lumiere Legacy. That was my inheritance, you see. Not just a building, or a bank account, but a world. A world of soft, golden sunlight streaming through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the workshop, and the warm, genuine smiles of employees who had been with us since before I was born. People who had watched me grow up. They weren't just staff, they were family. My father, he built that. He built it from nothing but a dream and a second-hand sewing machine. But on that Tuesday afternoon, a day I will never forget as long as I live, the air in our main conference room was so thick with tension you could have cut it with a pair of shears. Audra, this merger is the best decision for both of us. For both companies. It's a strategic move. Why can't you see that? Across the table, my fiancé, Sterling Thorne, tapped his fingers on the polished mahogany. Tap. 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 A rhythmic, impatient sound that grated on my last nerve. It was like a countdown clock to my own personal doom. His frustration was a paper-thin veil over something much colder, something I was only just beginning to allow myself to recognize. Sterling was the heir to the Thorne Corporation, a name that used to mean power and prestige in this country, but lately, was mostly just a name. His handsome, chiseled features, the ones I used to think were so strong and kind, now seemed like a cruel mask. A mask for the cold, naked ambition that was gleaming in his eyes. I took a slow breath, trying to keep my voice steady. Professional. The best decision, Sterling? Let's be honest, shall we? It's the best decision for Thorne's benefit, isn't it? I leaned forward, my hands flat on the table. My company, this legacy, is the dream my father built from scratch. Our employees. Harlan, in accounting, who has been here for 30 years. Maria, in cutting, who put her 2 kids through college on her salary here, they are like family to me. Their pensions are tied up in this company's success. I will not, I said, my voice dropping, let you use them as collateral to patch up your own failing business. You make it sound so ugly, Audra, he sighed, leaning back in his chair, that patronizing air settling over him like a shroud. I'm telling you, this is a strategic partnership. There it was again. That tone. That dismissive, condescending tone. Ever since my father passed away 2 years ago, it had started. It was subtle at first. I'd been so lost in my grief after the funeral, so overwhelmed with the reading of the will and the sudden weight of the inheritance, this whole company resting on my shoulders. I had accepted Sterling's proposal in that fog of grief. He had been so supportive, or so I thought. He held my hand, he told me I was strong. But the man who once praised my design talent, who stood by me as I wept, that man was gone. In his place was this stranger, who viewed my work, my father's entire life, as just another pawn in his grand corporate game. My father's words, spoken in that awful, raspy whisper from his hospital bed, echoed in my mind. He'd been so frail, a pale shadow of the vibrant, powerful man he once was. Audra, my sweet girl, he'd said, his grip on my hand surprisingly strong. Sterling, he's too ambitious. There's a hunger in his eyes, a hunger that can't ever be satisfied. Love, it can give us strength, Audra, but it can also blind us. Never, ever lose yourself. No matter what. How foolish I was. How utterly, devastatingly foolish. I'd been blinded by what I thought was love, and I dismissed his warning as the old-fashioned worry of a protective father. This discussion is over, I said, my voice suddenly firm, cutting through his condescension. I stood up, the legs of my chair scraping against the floor. It was the only sound in the room besides his tapping, which had finally, blessedly, stopped. Lumiere legacy will remain independent. That's my final decision. And it was my father's dying wish. When I said it, so finally, Sterling fell eerily quiet. For a long, tense moment, I actually thought I had one. I thought he had finally heard me. Then, he let out a soft, low laugh. It wasn't a laugh of amusement. It was a laugh of calculation. It sent a chill right down my spine. Fine, he said, standing up, smoothing the front of his $1,000 suit. His sudden calm was 1,000 times more unsettling than his anger. If that's how you feel, we'll take a break. Cool off a little. A break. The word just hung there in the air, cold and sharp. He walked around the table, and before I could move, he leaned in and kissed my cheek. It felt like a piece of ice pressed against my skin. I didn't know it then, but that wasn't an armistice. It wasn't a truce. It was the quiet, cold snap in the air just before the blizzard hits. That night, I dragged myself home. The commute was a blur. I just remember the brake lights, the horns, the feeling of exhaustion so deep it felt like it was in my bones. The weight of the company, the fight with Sterling, the constant pressure, it was all becoming too much. All I wanted was a scalding hot bath and a glass of wine, maybe two. I fumbled with my keys at the door, my hands shaking slightly. I finally got it open and stepped into the quiet of my apartment. But as I walked into the living room, I stopped. My younger sister, Delilah, was curled up on my sofa, her face lit by the blue glow of her phone. Delilah? What are you doing here? She looked up, and her face split into a smile that was just a little too bright. Audra! Welcome back! You look exhausted. Delilah had always been the dreamer in our family, the one drawn to anything that sparkled. Growing up, I was the perfect big sister. I got the good grades, I was focused, I was the responsible one. And Delilah. Delilah was the pretty one, the charming one. I knew she carried this complicated, tangled mess of love and deep, abiding jealousy toward me because of it. I just never knew how deep it truly ran. Here, look at this, she said, her voice bright and cheerful, jumping up from the couch. She held her phone out to me, and I saw a picture of a stunning tropical resort. White sand, water so turquoise it looked fake. Sterling said you've been working way too hard lately. And you've got that huge international design competition in Italy next week, right? She continued, her eyes wide with what I mistook for genuine excitement. He thought you should unwind a little before then. You know, get your creative juices flowing. So, he arranged everything. My heart did a strange, lurching skip. An overseas trip? Delilah, that's sudden. I can't just leave. The new line is launching, I have payroll. But it's such a huge opportunity, she chirped, cutting me off, putting her hands on my shoulders. Her hands felt hot. Your new designs are amazing, Audra. You're definitely going to win. This is your chance to really put Lumiere legacy on the global map, to show everyone you're more than just your father's daughter. He even cleared it with your assistant. It's all handled. All you have to do is pack. Delilah's innocent smile. Sterling's unexpected, over-the-top kindness. The perfect, convenient timing. It all felt wrong. A cold, hard knot of unease tightened in my stomach. Something unseen was lurking just behind their sweet, smiling gestures, a shadow I couldn't quite make out. Still, she was right about one thing. That competition was a massive opportunity. A win there could secure new international partners. It would be the ultimate proof to our investors, and to Sterling, that we were stronger than ever, that we didn't need his failing corporation to save us. Saying no. It wasn't really an option. I had to go. I had to win. Thanks, Delilah, I said, forcing a weary smile I didn't feel. Tell him thank you. I'll pack tonight. In the end, of course, I accepted their so-called kindness. What choice did I have? I spent the next 2 days in a blur, frantically trying to get ahead on work, packing my sketches, my fabrics, and that deep, nagging anxiety. I flew to Italy. And for 1 solid week, I threw myself into the work. I barely slept. I lived on espresso and adrenaline, sketching and draping and stitching, shaking off that persistent, nagging unease. I worked day and night, fueled by a desperate, burning need to succeed. And I did it. I actually did it. I won the grand prize. Standing on that stage in Milan, under the bright, hot lights, holding that heavy, polished award, I felt a surge of pride I hadn't felt in years. This was it. This was the proof. This was the validation I needed. Surely now, Sterling would see the value of my company as it was. Surely now, he would stop talking about mergers and takeovers and hostile buyouts. This was a huge step, a giant leap, toward protecting my father's dream. I was exhausted, yes, my entire body ached, but my heart was full. I couldn't wait to get home. The flight back was one of those endless, 14-hour ordeals. I couldn't sleep, my mind was racing. I kept replaying the win in my head, imagining the look on Sterling's face, the pride in Harlan's eyes, the relief of my entire team. I was so lost in my happy, triumphant thoughts that I barely noticed the time until the taxi pulled up to my quiet, dark apartment building. It was well after midnight. I paid the driver, dragged my suitcase up the steps, and opened the door. The moment I stepped inside, I knew something was wrong. The air. Usually, my apartment smelled clean, like linen and the faint scent of the lemon oil I used on the wood. But the air that hit me was thick, cloying, and sweet. Vanilla. A heavy, cheap-smelling vanilla perfume. It was a scent I didn't recognize, but it felt sickeningly, horribly familiar. Hello? I called out. No answer. Confused, I dropped my bags in the hallway, the heavy thud echoing in the silence. I walked toward my bedroom, my heart starting to pick up its pace. The door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open. My blood ran cold. The closet door, the one I always kept shut, was wide open. And the space inside, the space where my wedding dress was supposed to be hanging, was empty. My dress. The one I had spent months designing. The one I had hand-stitched with the priceless, antique lace from my own late mother's gown. It was gone. My heart started pounding violently against my ribs, a frantic, panicked drumbeat. What's going on? Where is it? A robbery? But nothing else was touched. My laptop was on the desk. My jewelry box was on the dresser. Just the dress. My phone buzzed in my pocket, and the sudden vibration made me scream out loud. I fumbled for it, my hands shaking. The screen lit up with a name, Maeve. My best friend. My rock. My lawyer. One of the very few people in the world I trusted with my life. I swiped to answer, my voice a high, thin tremor. Maeve? What's wrong? There was a long, terrible pause on the other end. Then, Maeve's voice came through, but it wasn't her normal voice. It was overly calm. Flat. It was the voice she used in a deposition, the voice she used when something was seriously, catastrophically wrong. Audra. Listen carefully. Where are you right now? I'm home. I just got back. Maeve, what is it? My wedding dress is gone. Another pause. I heard her take a deep, steadying breath. Audra, you need to sit down. Please. Just sit down on the floor. Right now. What is it? I whispered, my hand gripping the doorframe so tightly my knuckles turned white. You're scaring me. It's Sterling, she said, her voice flat, devoid of all emotion. And Delilah. What about them? Audra, they got married yesterday. For a moment, the words didn't register. They were just sounds. Static. Echoing emptily in my silent, vanilla-scented apartment. Married? Sterling? And Delilah? My baby sister? It didn't make sense. It couldn't be real. What are you talking about? That's not possible. That's insane. And then, she delivered the final, fatal blow. The words that would end my life as I knew it. In your wedding dress. That one sentence. That one, simple sentence, it shattered my reality. A cold, heavy sickness rose from the pit of my stomach, thick and suffocating. My legs gave out. I didn't just sit, I collapsed, sliding down the wall and landing hard on the hardwood floor. The phone was still pressed to my ear. Check Instagram, Maeve's voice said, seeming to come from a great distance. It's all over it. It looks like they planned it the moment you got on that plane. Audra. I am so sorry. I should have seen this. I should have known. Her voice faded. I don't remember saying goodbye. I don't remember ending the call. My fingers felt like numb, useless sausages. With shaking, fumbling hands, I opened the app. And there it was. My own personal nightmare, broadcast in high definition for the entire world to see. A photo. Delilah, my sister, wearing my dress. My mother's lace. She was clinging to Sterling's arm, her face glowing with a radiant, triumphant smile. A luxurious chapel overflowing with white roses. An extravagant reception. Photos of them laughing with friends, feeding each other cake, their first dance. Dozens of photos. A flood of them. Each one a separate, sharp knife twisting in my gut. And then, the most recent post. From Delilah's account. A photo of the two of them, silhouetted against a sunset, kissing. The caption, oh God, the caption. The moment we realized it was fate. Sorry, Audra, but sometimes love and business don't wait. Love. And business. In that one horrific instant, everything clicked into place. The sudden trip to Italy. Delilah's sickeningly sweet encouragement. Sterling's sudden, uncharacteristic kindness. And that single, damning word, business. Their goal was never just to steal my fiancé. This was never about love. Their goal was to push me out. To humiliate me. To break me. To take my company. It wasn't just about stealing a man, it was about stealing my father's legacy, my life's work, my entire soul. A dry, choked, horrible laugh escaped my throat. The sadness, the rage, the betrayal, it was all consumed by a cold, absolute stillness that settled over me, heavy as a lead blanket. They thought they had won. They thought they had broken me, the perfect big sister. They thought I would just curl up and cry. They had no idea what was coming. My phone buzzed again, vibrating on the hardwood floor. It snapped me out of my trance. I looked at the screen. This time it was Harlan. My father's loyal head of accounting. A red icon flashed on the screen next to his name. Urgent. I picked it up. My hand was perfectly steady now. The tears were gone. My voice, when I answered, was clear and cold as ice. Harlan. Audra. Thank God. Are you back? Are you safe? The news, we have a problem, he said, his voice tight and frantic with worry. Sterling Thorne is demanding an emergency shareholders meeting. He's citing your unapproved absence from the country. When? I asked. Next week. The agenda. Audra, the agenda is a motion for the dismissal of the current CEO and a full, immediate merger with the Thorn Corporation. Of course. The final move. The checkmate in their disgusting, pathetic little game. I let out a slow, deliberate breath. I looked around my empty apartment, at the lingering, toxic scent of vanilla. Harlan, I said, my voice so calm it scared even me. Stay calm. Everything is under control. You're going to do exactly as they say. You're going to help them set up the meeting. But our counterattack starts now. I was no longer the heartbroken woman crying on the floor. I was no longer the sister who had been betrayed. I was no longer the fiancée who had been deceived. I was my father's daughter. I hung up with Harlan and immediately redialed Maeve. Maeve, it's me, I said, the moment she answered. Audra, I'm getting in my car right now, I'm coming over. No, I cut her off. I don't have time to cry. I don't have time for comfort. This is war. I could almost hear the smile in her voice. A grim, sharp smile. I've been waiting to hear that, Audra. I'm at my desk. My lawyer hat is on. Where do we start? First, I began, standing up, pacing the room. The cold fury was giving me a strange, sharp clarity I'd never felt before. Hire the best IT investigator you can find. I don't care about the cost. I don't care if you have to call in favors. I want someone who used to be a hacker, someone who knows how the underground digital world works. I need access to Sterling's laptop, his phone, his company servers, everything. I want every email, every text, every wire transfer. Trace the money, Maeve. Track his connections. Get me everything. Got it, Maeve said, not a hint of hesitation in her voice. I know a guy. Calls himself Zero. He's a ghost. He's the best. What's next? The marriage. This sham between Delilah and Sterling. They filed the paperwork, fine. But we're going to make it a living nightmare. Legally, Sterling was still my fiancé. We had a date set. We had non-refundable deposits on a venue, a caterer, all in his name, too. Marrying someone else while engaged to me might not be bigamy, but it's a civil offense. It's breach of contract. It's grounds for a substantial damages claim. I want you to file it. Today. I paused, staring out the window at the dark, unforgiving city skyline. Their real target is my company. They're going to throw everything they have at me. Social media slander, pressure on our business partners, but I'll turn every single move they make against them. Audra, Maeve said, her voice softer now, a little odd. You sound different. Like someone else entirely. That's right, I said, my voice dropping to a whisper. The kind-hearted, naive Audra Bennett died tonight. What's left is my father's daughter. And she's a CEO who is ready to fight. After hanging up with Maeve, I walked into my study. The apartment still reeked of that perfume, so I opened a window, letting the cold night air rush in. My hands were steady now. I walked to the heavy oak bookshelf that had been my father's and pulled on the false spine of a book. A small panel clicked open, revealing a safe. My fingers were sure on the combination lock. The heavy door swung open. From the back, hidden behind stacks of financial documents and old family photos, I retrieved 2 items, an old, worn, leather-bound journal and a single black USB drive. Both had been left for me by my father, given to me by his lawyer after the funeral with a note that said, "Only when you're ready." On the tag attached to the USB, his handwriting was shaky, the writing of a man who knew he was dying. But the words were clear, my final trump card. I had tried to access it once before, a year ago, lost in grief and confusion, but it was secured with a heavily encrypted password that I couldn't guess. I set it on the desk and opened his journal. The worn leather felt cool and familiar beneath my fingers. On the first page, he had written, "To my Audra. If you're reading this, it means I'm gone. There are things I must tell you. The Thorne family's methods are reckless and dangerous. They are not builders, they are consumers. They devour and they destroy. Sterling, I'm afraid, carries that legacy in his blood. He is not what he seems. If anything happens to me, I can only hope you see him for what he truly is before it's too late. The final trump card is on this USB. I pray to God you never need it. But if you do, the answer lies in what we built together. What we built together. The final trump card." I gripped the small USB drive tightly in my hand. It was heavy, heavy with the weight of my father's love and his fear. I didn't have the password yet, but I would find it. "Sterling," I whispered to the empty room. "Delilah. You started this game." I looked at my father's portrait over the fireplace. "But I'll be the one to finish it. No rules. No mercy." The next morning, the world turned its fangs on me, just as I had predicted. It was even worse than I imagined. I woke up on the couch, my neck stiff, the cold morning light streaming in. I hadn't slept. I'd just passed out. My phone, charging on the coffee table, was buzzing relentlessly. A continuous, angry vibration. I picked it up. Dozens of missed calls. Hundreds of text messages. And the push notifications. When I opened my browser, my face was plastered across the top of every news site, every gossip blog. Breaking: rising star designer Audra Bennett accused of embezzling company funds, fleeing abroad. Source says jealousy over sister's shocking marriage to fiancé drove the desperate act. Sources. I felt a cold, bitter laugh rise in my throat. I tapped on an article from a major news outlet. A video immediately began to play. It was Delilah. She was sitting in the lavish living room of Sterling's mansion, a room I had helped him decorate. She was pale, her eyes red-rimmed and tear-streaked. She clutched a lace handkerchief in her hand. It was an award-worthy performance. "My sister," she sobbed, looking directly into the camera, her voice breaking beautifully. She's always been the type who had to have whatever she wanted. She was always so perfect. When she found out that Sterling and I had developed feelings for each other, she just couldn't handle it. She forced herself between us. She took a gasping breath, as if the lies were physically painful to get out. I guess the company was struggling, too. More than she let on. But I never, ever imagined she'd steal from it. From our father's legacy. I can't believe it. It was brilliant. Utterly diabolical, but brilliant. She was the teary-eyed, fragile victim. The picture of a tragic heroine, forced to choose between her cruel sister and her one true love. And next to her, Sterling stood, his hand protectively on her shoulder, his face a mask of grim, heartbroken resolve. The comment section was a cesspool. A river of digital vitriol. What a disgrace. I always knew she was a cold-hearted snake. She let success go to her head. Stole from her own company. Poor Delilah. She deserves to be happy. Glad she found happiness with a real man. Homewrecker? Sounds like Audra was the one who wrecked her own home. At the exact same time, the company phones began ringing. Non-stop. A symphony of disaster. I went into the office, walking through the lobby with my head held high, ignoring the whispers and the shocked, pitying stares from my own staff. My assistant, Beth, looked pale when I got to my floor. Audra, the phones, they won't stop ringing. All our major partners. They're terminating their contracts. Get Harlan in here, I said, my voice calm. And the bank, she stammered. Our business manager at the bank called. They're revisiting our lines of credit. They're talking about freezing our accounts. Get Harlan, I repeated. Panicked employees were demanding answers. Is this true, Audra? What's going to happen to our jobs? To our salaries? To our retirement funds? Sterling's assault was brutal. It was swift. It was precise. He wasn't just trying to humiliate me, he was trying to choke me off, to bankrupt the company before I could even fight back. He was trying to annihilate me. That afternoon, after a full day of fielding calls, of trying to stop the bleeding, of reassuring my terrified staff, I sat alone in my office. The phones had finally, blessedly, gone quiet. I stared at my father's portrait hanging on the wall. The sky outside had turned a sickly gray, the clouds thick and churning. A perfect mirror for the storm inside my heart. Maybe this really was the end. Maybe he was too strong. Maybe I had already failed. Dad, I'm so sorry, I thought, my eyes burning with hot, angry, unshed tears. I couldn't protect your company. I couldn't protect your legacy. I'm sorry. Just as that cold, paralyzing despair wrapped around my heart, there was a gentle, familiar knock on my office door. It's Harlan. I opened the door. Harlan, our veteran head of accounting, stood there, his face etched with a deep, weary concern. But his eyes were clear. He wasn't one of the panicked ones. He was old guard. He was my father's man. In his hands, he held a thick, worn accordion file. Please don't carry this burden alone, Audra, he said, his voice gentle but firm. He stepped past me into the office. There are still people here who believe in you. We all believe in you. Just like we always believed in your dad. His words were a balm to my raw, wounded spirit. Harlan, these lies, they're spreading so fast. The banks are freezing our accounts. I don't know if I can make payroll next week. Forget the banks, he said, setting the file down on my desk with a heavy thud. These lies they're spreading, they won't stand. And more importantly, I think you need to take a look at this. He opened the file. Inside were meticulously organized accounting records, ledgers, and printouts. Several pages were marked with bright red tabs. I've been suspicious of Mr. Thorne for months, Harlan explained, his voice low and serious, his finger tracing a line of figures on a spreadsheet. I didn't want to worry you or your father, but I started keeping my own records. Look here. Sterling signed multiple shady consulting contracts over the past month, totaling about $500,000. He slid another paper over. But the firms he's dealing with, they're paper companies. They're ghosts. No real operations, no employees. Just a P.O. box and a bank account. And I traced where the money's going. He pointed to another document, a list of private investors who had been quietly, aggressively buying up Lumiere legacy stock over the past 2 weeks. I looked into them, Harlan continued, his voice tight with anger. All of them. This one, his old college roommate. This one, an ex-employee from Thorne. This one, the divorced sister of his COO. They're all Shell employees, old friends. He's using our company's own money, our cash reserves, to secretly buy out our own shares. A rush of blood thundered in my ears. The audacity of it. The absolute, galling arrogance. He's embezzling our funds, to steal our company, I whispered, the ugly, sickening truth settling in my gut like a stone. Yes, Harlan confirmed, his eyes dark. He's launching a hostile takeover using our own checkbook. And at this rate, with the stock price plummeting from his bad news, he'll have a majority controlling stake by next week's emergency shareholders meeting. He'll be able to vote you out, and vote himself in, all legally. For a moment, I just stared at the papers. The black and white proof of Sterling's treachery. Then I looked up at Harlan, at his steady, loyal, furious face. "Harlan, thank you," I said, my voice thick with an emotion I couldn't name. It was gratitude, but it was also a cold, clarifying rage. This is exactly the evidence we need. This is the first bullet in our gun. "We're with you until the end, Audra," he said, his eyes meeting mine. "That's a promise I made to your dad a long, long time ago. He was a good man. He didn't deserve what happened." His unwavering words reignited the fire inside me. I wasn't alone in this fight. That night, Maeve called. Her voice was buzzing, electric. "Audra, that investigator you asked for. 0. He's not just good. He's a digital god. A former white hat hacker. There is nothing in the digital world he can't find. Can he start immediately?" I asked, pacing my living room, the journal and the USB on the table in front of me. "He already has," she replied, and I could hear the grin in her voice. "He's inside the Thorn Corporation servers as we speak. He's been in for 6 hours. And Audra, he's found something juicy." A moment later, an image came through on the secure, encrypted app Maeve had insisted I install. It was an internal Thorn document. Confidential financial data. They're real balance sheets. "Look at this," Maeve said, her voice sharp. "The Thorn family is drowning. They're not just in debt, they are drowning in it. Years of reckless investments, massive, crushing debt. The banks are cutting them off. This is why they're so desperate for Lumiere legacy. Your company, your clean assets, your high credit rating, your steady profits, you are their last hope. Their last lifeline. So that's why he pushed so hard. It wasn't just greed. It was pure, raw desperation." "Exactly," Maeve said, as if reading my mind. "And here's the real bombshell. He just sent it to me." Another file appeared on my phone. This time, it was an audio recording. The file name was apex_board_meeting_secret_recording. My finger hovered over the play button. "He said he planted a bug in their main conference room," Maeve explained. "This is from 2 weeks ago. Before your trip. You need to hear this." I pressed play, and my blood ran cold. I heard the clinking of glasses. Murmurs. Then Sterling's voice, slick and confident, "The Lumiere acquisition is proceeding on schedule. Audra's probably still dreaming about her little designs in Italy. By the time she returns, she'll have no place left to come back to." Then, another voice. Older, gravelly. "His father. Chairman Thorn. Don't mess this up, Sterling. That company is our last lifeline. Do you have any idea how hard it was to remove Audra's father? That stubborn old man. He just wouldn't sell." And finally, Sterling again. His voice was light, casual, as if he were discussing the weather. It was the casualness that broke me. "I know, Dad. He conveniently dropped dead from overwork and stress. His daughter, she'll follow the same fate if she resists." I stopped breathing. The phone slipped from my hand and clattered onto the floor. "Dropped dead from overwork. His daughter will follow the same fate." My father's death. It wasn't just exhaustion. It wasn't just the pressure of the business. They orchestrated it. They hounded him. They stressed him. They pushed him until his heart, his good, kind, strong heart, just gave out. I scrambled for the phone, my whole body shaking. "Maeve," I stammered, my voice cracking. This is." "Yes," she said softly, her voice filled with a cold fury I'd never heard from her before. "This isn't just a hostile takeover anymore, Audra. This is a crime. This is negligent homicide. At least. We should call the police." Right now. Wait, I cut her off. My voice was trembling, but not with fear. It was with a rage so profound, so deep, it felt like it could burn the entire city to the ground. Not yet. Not the police. If we want to destroy them. I mean destroy them, socially, financially, and legally, we need something bigger. We need to be smarter. I took a shaky breath. And Maeve, we need to save Delilah. Delilah? Maeve's voice was sharp with disbelief. Audra, are you hearing yourself? After what she did? She betrayed you in the worst way possible. She's not your sister anymore. No, I insisted, a strange, terrible clarity cutting through my fury. She's a victim, too. Don't you see? That recording proves it. Sterling is a monster. He will toss her aside the moment she's no longer useful. He's using her as a pawn, as a shield. I have to wake her up, before he destroys her, too. From that day on, my counterattack began in earnest. It was quiet, but it was relentless. I was fighting a war on two fronts, one to save my company, and one to save my sister from the monster she had married. I knew I couldn't approach Delilah directly. She was too deep under Sterling's spell, too blinded by the money and the new, glamorous life. If she saw me, she would only shut down, run straight to him, and he would know I was planning something. So instead, I went through the one person she might still trust, her best friend, Kelly. Maeve set up the meeting. A quiet, out-of-the-way coffee shop, far from anywhere they might be seen. She went as my legal representative, my lawyer. Under the condition of absolute anonymity, she began to feed Kelly bits of information. Your friend is in grave danger, Maeve told her calmly, laying out printed copies of Thorne Corporation's crumbling financials. She's not his wife. She's his scapegoat. Sterling is manipulative, and he is setting Delilah up to take the fall for all of it. He's already opened offshore accounts in her name. At first, Kelly was skeptical. Defensive. Delilah is in love, she insisted. Sterling adores her. This is you're just being a bitter ex. Maeve didn't flinch. She just laid out more evidence. Sterling's long, documented history of womanizing. The suspicious consulting contracts Harlan had found. The shell companies. This isn't love, Kelly, Maeve said, her voice firm. It's a business transaction. And Delilah is the one being sold. As Kelly saw the evidence, her expression changed from disbelief to dawning horror. While Maeve was planting those seeds of doubt on the outside, Harlan and I worked to unify our team on the inside. I couldn't let my people fight in the dark. I called an all-hands meeting. The atmosphere in the main design studio was thick with fear. I stood before every single employee of Lumiere Legacy, from the senior designers who had been my father's friends, to the new interns in the mailroom. And I told them everything. I told them about Sterling's lies. I told them about the media attacks. I told them about his desperate financial situation and the threat of the hostile takeover. I laid bare the entire, ugly truth. The room was dead silent as I spoke. The employees, who had been so shaken and scared by the rumors, listened intently. As they began to understand the full picture, I could see the fear in their eyes being replaced by a quiet, simmering, collective anger. I am so sorry, I finished, my voice ringing with a conviction I didn't know I possessed. I am sorry for the fear and the confusion this has caused. But I will not give in. I will not sell you out. I will protect this company, the dream my father built, and the workplace that you have all fought for. But I can't do it alone. I need you to stand with me. For a long, agonizing moment, there was only silence. I thought, for a second, that I had lost them. Then, a young designer, a woman named Clara whom I had hired just 6 months prior, stood up. We love working here, Audra, she said, her voice clear and strong, cutting through the silence. We are proud of what Lumiere Legacy stands for. We're not just employees. We're family. Like you said. Please, let us fight with you. Until the very end. One by one, other voices joined in. We're with you, Audra. We're not going anywhere. We're with you. I had to hold back the tears that threatened to fall. I was surrounded by such warm, such unwavering support. I was not alone. Meanwhile, Zero's investigation was digging deeper. He was a ghost, a digital phantom. He found the offshore bank account in Delilah's name, the one Sterling had set up. And when he followed the money trail, he made another shocking discovery. Audra, this is big, Maeve relayed to me over our secure line. We were speaking several times a day now, like generals in a war room. Sterling didn't just stash the embezzled funds there. He funneled some of it into another, even more hidden account. Another account? For what? To hire industrial spies. My blood ran cold. Zero sent over encrypted chat logs. Conversations between Sterling and a shadowy figure, a man known in the corporate underground for stealing trade secrets. Sterling, did you get the blueprints for Lumiere Legacy's upcoming fall project? The Rebirth line? Spy, delivered. The data is encrypted and sent. But I'm telling you, Audra Bennett is tough. Her new computer security is insane. Took me days. Sterling, it doesn't matter. After next week's shareholder meeting, it's all over anyway. No matter what she does, it'll be too late. Those designs will be ours. They had stolen our future. The unreleased designs, the collection I had poured my blood, sweat, and tears into. The collection I had just won the award for. One ugly, damning piece after another was falling into place. Embezzlement. Betrayal of trust. Corporate espionage. And the horrifying, sickening truth behind my father's death. All that remained was the final piece of the puzzle. The black USB drive. My father's last gift. I spent hours. Hours I should have been sleeping, hours I should have been eating. I sat at my father's desk, trying every password I could possibly think of. My father's birthday. My mother's name. My mother's birthday. The company's founding date. The date he died. Every single time, the same frustrating, mocking message flashed on the screen, access denied. Dad, what were you trying to tell me? I whispered to his portrait. What am I missing? What did we build together? I reread his journal over and over, my eyes scanning every line, searching for a clue, but I found nothing. The emergency shareholders meeting was just 3 days away. Time was running out. Then, a frantic message came from Kelly, relayed through Maeve. Audra, you need to know. Something's wrong with Delilah. She's terrified. She looks pale, she's not eating. She looks like a prisoner in that mansion. I saw her crying, she was refusing to sign some documents Sterling was pushing on her. Today, she told me she found a bank statement from an overseas account she swears she knows nothing about. There it was. Sterling was preparing his exit strategy. He was getting ready to frame her, to pin all of his crimes on her and walk away clean, leaving my sister to take the fall. Maeve, I said, my voice urgent. We need to get Delilah out of there. Now. Work with Kelly. Tell her to get Delilah to a safe place, a hotel, her apartment, anywhere, but do it before Sterling finds out she's talking to anyone. Got it, Maeve replied. But will she listen? Will she actually leave him? She's terrified of him. Play her the audio recording, I said, my heart heavy as lead. Let her hear Sterling and his father, let her hear them talking about what they did to our dad. That will wake her up. That has to be the thing that breaks the spell. I sent Maeve the audio file. It was a cruel, horrible thing to do, to force her to hear that. But it was the only shock great enough. It had to be. The day before the shareholder meeting, I sat alone in my dark office. I was exhausted. We had the bank records. We had the testimony from Kelly. We had the audio recording of the conspiracy. We had enough, probably, to bury Sterling legally and socially. But I knew the real truth, the final piece my father wanted me to know, was still locked inside that stubborn little USB drive. I picked up his journal, flipping through the worn pages one last time. Then I noticed something. Something I'd missed 100 times before. On the very last page, a page I thought was blank, there was a faint ink stain, almost like a teardrop. And down in the very bottom corner, written in my father's delicate, familiar fountain pen script, were words I could barely read. The day you gave me that sketch, your first drawing of me. I'll never forget it, Audra Bean. A treasure forever. And below it, a string of numbers, 199800516. May 16, 1998. A memory, sharp and bright, cut through my exhaustion. My 6th birthday. Me, with my new box of crayons, sitting on the floor of his studio, drawing a portrait of him. His smiling face, all crooked, with a big, bright yellow sun behind him. I had given it to him, so proud. He had laughed, hugged me, and told me it was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. He'd had it framed. It was still hanging in his study at home. No, could it be that simple? What we built together. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely type. I inserted the USB drive into my laptop one more time. I slowly, carefully, typed in the numbers. 199805116. I held my breath and pressed enter. Click. The screen lit up. Access granted. A single video file appeared on the screen. It was titled, simply, To My Beloved Daughter, Audra. My heart felt like it was going to burst out of my chest. I clicked on the file. My father's face filled the screen. He was thinner than I remembered, so much thinner. His face was gaunt, etched with a worry so deep it looked like a physical pain. But he was smiling. That gentle, kind smile that I missed every single day. He was in his office. My office. Sitting right where I was sitting now. Audra, his soft voice filled the silent room. My sweet girl. If you're watching this, it means something has happened to me. And it means you're now fighting, alone, to uncover the truth. He paused, taking a shaky, difficult breath. I'm so sorry, my love. I'm so sorry I left you to face this. Let me be direct, he continued, his voice gaining a sudden, hard strength. Sterling Thorne is our enemy. For the past year, he has been systematically trying to destroy me. He stole my company's technology, he poached my best staff, he spread rumors to my suppliers. He mentally, emotionally, and financially cornered me. All of it was a calculated campaign to force me to sell Lumiere Legacy. I resisted. But I may be nearing my limit. My father coughed then, a weak, rattling sound that tore my heart in two. It was clear he was struggling, that even filming this was taking every last ounce of his strength. But Audra, he said, leaning closer to the camera, his eyes finding mine across the gulf of time. Listen to me. Don't let revenge consume you. Don't become them. True strength, it doesn't lie in destruction. It lies in protecting. In nurturing. In building. You have that power, Audra. You always have. This video, this is my final gift. My final trump card. To help you do just that. To protect what we built. He then held up a document to the camera. It was a sheaf of old, yellowed papers, bound with a blue ribbon. "This," he said, his voice ringing with a sudden, triumphant pride, "is a confidential contract. Signed 30 years ago, between the founder of the Thorn Corporation, Sterling's grandfather, and myself. It was when I helped him develop the textile technology that launched his entire empire. He had nothing, I had the patents. In exchange for my technical contributions, the Thorn family agreed, in perpetuity, forever, to ensure Lumiere Legacy's permanent independence. And," he paused, tapping the paper, "to never, under any circumstances, pursue a hostile takeover." He looked directly into the camera, his eyes burning with a fierce, protective love. "If they violate this agreement, Audra, if they ever try to take this company from you, all rights the Thorn Corporation holds concerning Lumiere Legacy, all patents, all licensing agreements, everything, become void." Immediately. It was the ultimate reversal. The ace in the hole. The kill shot. Our family's final, devastating trump card. "Audra," he finished, his voice growing soft again, a tear glistening in his eye. "I love you. I hope you find happiness. Live strong." The video ended. The screen went black. I sat there, frozen, in the dark, silent office. And I just broke. Silent, hot tears streamed down my cheeks, falling onto the keyboard, onto the desk where he had sat. They weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of overwhelming love. Of gratitude. Of a profound, aching relief. He knew. He saw it all. And even from beyond the grave, he had found a way to protect me. I wiped my tears, my hand closing around the small, black USB drive. "Thank you, Dad," I whispered to the empty room. "I'll fight. Just like you taught me. I'll protect what matters." I stood up and looked out at the glittering night skyline. The air was cold and still. The calm before the storm. "Sterling Thorn," I said to the glass. "Your party's over. Tomorrow's shareholder meeting, it's not a meeting. It's your execution." The next morning, the grand ballroom of the downtown hotel was thick with tension. It was palpable. You could smell it in the air, a mix of expensive perfume, coffee, and pure, nervous sweat. Whispers buzzed through the crowd of board members, investors, and shareholders like angry, trapped hornets. Cameras flashed nonstop from the press section in the back. The reporters could smell blood in the water. At the center of it all, at the main podium, stood Sterling Thorn. He was puffed up like a conquering hero, his suit perfect, his hair immaculate, his face a mask of solemn concern. Next to him, his father, the chairman, looked visibly shaken, pale and gray. I scanned the room. Delilah was nowhere to be seen. I saw Sterling's eyes flicker to the entrance, a brief, annoyed flash of unease crossing his face before he plastered on his smug, confident smile. Good. She was safe. She was with Maeve. From the shadows at the very back of the ballroom, Maeve and I watched in silence. She was there as my legal counsel. I wore a sharp, black, custom-tailored suit. My own personal suit of armor. A few shareholders, men who had played golf with Sterling, turned and shot me contemptuous, disgusted looks. I met their gaze, unblinking, until they looked away. I barely felt them. I was beyond caring what they thought. Today was not for them. Today was for my father. We now call to order this emergency shareholder meeting for Lumiere Legacy, the chairman's voice boomed, his voice shaky, silencing the room. Sterling stepped forward to the microphone and theatrically cleared his throat. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice dripping with false, unctuous sincerity. Thank you for gathering here today on such short notice. As the largest shareholder, and as Audra Bennett's former fiancé, I deeply, deeply regret the circumstances that have brought us here. He looked around the room, his face a perfect mask of pain and reluctance. He could have won an Oscar. After she embezzled company funds and vanished, Lumiere Legacy stands at a dangerous crossroads. In response, I have made a difficult, but necessary, decision. I propose that the Thorn Corporation absorb and rebuild this historic, but failing, company. And as a first, necessary step, I formally submit a motion to dismiss Audra Bennett as CEO. His loyal shareholders, the ones Harlan had identified, responded with eager, rehearsed applause. Just as the chairman, looking relieved, prepared to call for the vote, I made my move. Objection. My voice. I didn't shout. But it was clear, unwavering, and amplified by the microphone I'd been holding, hidden at my side. It cut through the tension in the room like a steel blade. Every single head in that ballroom snapped to the back, to me. A collective gasp went up. Sterling's face, oh, his face. It was a beautiful, priceless mixture of shock, confusion, and pure, unadulterated rage. Audra, he sputtered. How the hell are you? What are you doing here? Maeve hit the lights. A single spotlight found me. And I began to walk. Slowly. Deliberately. Down the center aisle, the crowd parting before us like the Red Sea. It felt like walking a war path. This is my company's shareholder meeting, Sterling, I said coolly, my voice echoing through the silent room. Why wouldn't I be here? I ignored him and stepped up to the second microphone, addressing everyone in the room. Good afternoon. I'm Audra Bennett. Thank you all for entertaining this circus. But the performance ends here. Now, it's time for the truth. Maeve, standing by a laptop connected to the massive projector screens on either side of the stage, gave me a subtle nod. The presentation began. First, I said, my voice ringing with authority, let's address Mr. Thorne's claim to be the majority shareholder. That claim is, in fact, under serious legal dispute. The screen lit up. Not with charts and graphs, but with the transaction records Harlan had uncovered. Paper companies. Fake consulting contracts. And the secret stock purchases by Sterling's college buddies and Shell employees. Sterling Thorne, I announced, embezzled over $500,000 from our company, my company, to secretly purchase shares under the names of these dummy entities. This constitutes both a breach of fiduciary duty and criminal embezzlement under corporate law. The room erupted in gasps and angry murmurs. Sterling's face turned a shade of blotchy crimson. Lies. That's absurd. There's no proof. Oh, but there is, I said. At that moment, a new, crisp, professional voice echoed from the speakers. My name is Forrest, and I serve as the Thorne Corporation's external auditor. I'm joining this meeting remotely today. The screen changed to show Forrest's calm, no-nonsense face. I saw the chairman, Sterling's father, stiffen as if he'd been shot. His face went from pale to ghostly white. My audit, Forrest stated, his voice steady and damning, confirms that Mr. Sterling Thorne withdrew over $5 million inappropriately from the Thorne Corporation's operating budget over the past 3 years, transferring it to various personal, unaudited accounts. My team has confirmed that part of that sum was used to acquire Lumiere Legacy shares. Forrest projected confidential financial records, bank transfers, wire receipts, onto the screen. The money trail was undeniable. It was a digital map of Sterling's greed. Cornered, trapped, Sterling did what all cowards do. He made one final, desperate, pathetic move. He pointed a shaking finger at the empty chair where he had expected Delilah to be sitting, supporting him. That wasn't me. It was her. Delilah. It was all Delilah's idea. She's the one who handled the accounts. She manipulated me. It was all her doing. Pathetic. But it was exactly what I was waiting for. Delilah, you say? I asked, a small, cold smile playing on my lips. At my signal, the grand doors of the ballroom swung open. And Delilah entered. She wasn't crying. She wasn't wearing a designer dress. She was pale, yes, but here, flanked by Maeve, who walked beside her, holding her arm. Maeve stepped to a microphone. "Miss Delilah Bennett is now our client," she announced firmly. "And she is currently preparing criminal charges against Mr. Sterling Thorne for coercion, fraud, forgery, and emotional distress." "What?" Sterling was stunned. He turned and glared at Delilah, his eyes burning with hate. You bitch." But she didn't flinch. She just looked at him, her eyes filled with a sad, newfound strength. "Sterling, I can't," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "I can't keep lying for you." Then she turned to me, her eyes filling with tears. "Audra. I am so sorry." And then, I delivered the final blow. The one that was just for me. "But Sterling Thorne's crimes, they don't end with money, do they?" I said, my voice dropping. "He's not just a thief. He's an industrial spy." I cued the audio file. Zero's recording. The entire, horrified room fell silent as Sterling's own smug, arrogant voice filled the air, colluding with the spy to steal my designs. The whispers among the shareholders turned to open shouts of outrage. "Fraud! Thief!" Chairman Thorne, his father, turned a sickly shade of gray and stumbled back into his chair, clutching his chest. He looked like he might actually have a heart attack. I looked down at Sterling from the podium. He was broken. Utterly, completely finished. "There is no need," I said quietly, my voice cutting through the chaos, "to vote on my dismissal. Because as of this moment, Mr. Thorne is no longer even a legitimate shareholder of this company. Shares acquired through criminal profit hold no voting rights." I turned, leaving him in his puddle of ruin, and faced the entire room. My room. My company. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, my voice ringing with a power I never knew I had. "I will rebuild Lumiere legacy. And I promise you, it will be stronger, bolder, and more creative than ever before." For a full 5 seconds, there was dead silence. Then, one person started clapping. Then another. And then the entire room, save for Sterling's now toxic allies, erupted in genuine, thunderous, overwhelming applause. The battle was over. Victory was ours. As I stepped down from the podium, the applause still ringing in my ears, I saw 2 uniformed police officers, who had been waiting discreetly at the entrance, begin to approach Sterling in silence. "Mr. Sterling Thorne," one of them said, his voice polite but firm. "We'd like you to come with us for questioning regarding allegations of fraud and embezzlement." Sterling looked too defeated, too shell-shocked, to even resist. He just nodded, his face pale and his eyes hollow. As they escorted him out, his expensive suit now looking rumpled, he turned back. He caught my eye. He leaned in close as he passed, his voice a last, venomous whisper, a final attempt to wound me. "Don't think you've won, Audra. If you bring me down, the real truth, the truth about your father's death will come out. You think I killed him? That deal he made with me, that's what broke him. You'll never be clean of this." A sharp, cold jolt shot through my chest. But I didn't flinch. I didn't let him see. I leaned in close, so only he could hear. "I know all about the deal, Sterling. But you still haven't seen my real trump card." For the very first time that day, a look of true, unadulterated, primal fear flashed across his face. He knew he was beaten. They led him away, and I just breathed. For the first time in weeks, I took a full, deep breath. If you've listened this far, would you do me a huge favor and like this video, and comment the number 1 down below? It lets me know that you're out there, and that you've been on this journey with me. Your support means the world and encourages me to keep going. Just comment the number 1 so I know you're here. And now, let me tell you what happened next. The battlefield that had masqueraded as a shareholder meeting was finally over. A heavy, exhausted silence remained in its place. Sterling was taken into custody, and as Maeve and I presented our evidence to the district attorney, the bank records from Harlan, the audio recording from Zero, the testimony from Delilah, the charges piled up. Embezzlement, fraud, coercion, conspiracy, corporate espionage. The media, of course, turned on a dime. The same outlets that had called me a disgraced embezzler were now hailing me as a phoenix. Their headlines screamed, "The Phoenix returns, tragic heroine triumphs, and genius designer topples corrupt corporate evil." It was sickening, but it was good for business. But my final battle wasn't over yet. Sterling's final, desperate words, trying to lay my father's death at my own feet, they clung to me like a curse. A thorn lodged deep in my heart. That night, in the CEO's office, my office, fully and truly mine now, I played the video. My father's final trump card. This time, the audience was different. It was me, Maeve, the prosecutor assigned to the case, and the Thorne family's new team of very expensive, very grim-faced lawyers. Forrest, the auditor, was there too, standing silently beside me, a steady, supportive presence. My father appeared on the screen. Calm, gaunt, but so determined. He spoke of the pressure from Sterling. He spoke of the stolen technology, the poached staff, the psychological torment that had worn him down, day after day. And finally, he revealed the confidential agreement. The one that guaranteed Lumiere Legacy's independence. If the Thorne Corporation, my father's voice echoed from the past, clear and strong, violates this agreement, they forfeit all rights and claims to Lumiere Legacy. All of them. The moment the video ended, the Thorne family's lead lawyer, a man who probably billed $2,000 an hour, let out a long, slow breath. He wiped a bead of sweat from his brow, looked up at the ceiling, and visibly sagged. This wasn't just a contract, it was a death sentence for the Thorne Corporation. Every single action they had taken against us, the hostile takeover attempt, the media slander, the industrial espionage, now constituted a massive, undeniable breach of contract. It made them liable to repay all unlawfully obtained licensing fees, all shared patents, all profits, retroactively, for 30 years. For the already crumbling, debt-ridden Thorne empire, it was the final, fatal blow. The prosecutor turned to me, his face grim. "Ms. Bennett, this video, it serves as critical evidence of Sterling Thorne's malicious, long-term intent. His charges will no longer be considered financial crimes alone. Even in death, my father had protected me. He had protected us all." Weeks later, after the dust had begun to settle, Delilah visited my office. I hadn't seen her since the shareholder meeting. She knocked softly. Gone were the glamorous clothes, the heavy makeup, the sparkling, false smile. She wore a plain black suit. She looked thin and tired, but clear. She carried herself with a quiet, somber seriousness I had never seen in her before. "Audra," she began, her voice barely a whisper. She wouldn't look me in the eye. I don't. "It's okay, Delilah," I said, motioning for her to sit. She looked me in the eye then, and for the first time in years, I saw my real sister. The little girl I grew up with. Not the character she had been playing. "No," she said, her voice cracking. "It's not okay. I'm truly sorry. I was so stupid. I couldn't see anything clearly." Sterling's sweet words, his promises, my own jealousy of you. I lost myself, Audra. Completely. I said nothing. I just watched her, letting her speak. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness," she continued, tears welling in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. "But I want to spend the rest of my life atoning for what I've done. I'm testifying against him. Fully. And Maeve, she's taken me on as an apprentice. A file clerk. At her firm. I want to go to law school. I want to help people like me. People who were tricked and hurt and stupid. Her eyes held no doubt. She was, for the first time in her life, beginning to walk her own path. One not defined by envy or by the men in her life. Delilah, I finally said softly. Your life is just beginning. Make it count. Thank you, Audra, she whispered, and a single tear rolled down her cheek. She stood up, and she left my office with a quiet dignity I hadn't seen in her since we were children. Maybe, just maybe, the twisted, broken bond between us had finally, painstakingly, begun to mend. As predicted, Sterling received a heavy sentence. With Delilah's testimony, my father's video, and the mountain of financial evidence from Harlan and Forrest, he didn't stand a chance. Embezzlement, breach of fiduciary duty, data theft, conspiracy, destruction of evidence, and indirect involvement in my father's death. 15 years. He screamed in court. He screamed that he was the victim. That Delilah was a liar. That I was a monster. But no one listened. Even his father, facing his own charges, abandoned him. Alone in prison, he would finally have to face the weight of his own sins. The Thorne Corporation effectively collapsed. The secret contract triggered a massive damages suit that bankrupted what was left of the company. Chairman Thorne resigned in disgrace. The once mighty family name was tarnished beyond repair. And ironically, Forrest, the very auditor who had helped expose their crimes, was appointed by the court to oversee the company's liquidation. He handled it with his trademark professionalism and unassailable integrity, with no personal bias. That was just the kind of man he was. Lumiere legacy, we made a miraculous comeback. The scandal, though harrowing, had catapulted our name into the international spotlight. I was no longer just my father's daughter, I was the designer who refused to bow to corruption. Our team, my loyal, wonderful team, rallied stronger than ever. We poured all our energy, all our passion, into creating bold, groundbreaking new designs. Our Rebirth collection sold out in 24 hours. And I, like my father before me, treated my employees as family. I gave raises. I secured their pensions. I poured everything I had into building an environment where their talents, their salaries, and their promotions could truly shine. Forrest, as it turned out, became my most trusted professional partner. Throughout the long, arduous process of dismantling what remained of the Thorne Corporation and rebuilding my own company, we spent countless hours working side by side, long into the night, poring over spreadsheets and legal documents. His sharp intellect, his unwavering integrity, and the gentle, kind smile he wore at just the right moments, they began to draw me in. It was slow. It wasn't a whirlwind. It was real. He was the only person who truly understood the depth of my wounds, who had seen me at my worst, and who stood beside me without asking for anything in return. Audra, you're one of the strongest people I know, he said once, as we walked out into the cool night air after a 14-hour strategy session, my feet aching in my heels. I shook my head, a small, weary smile touching my lips. No. I'm not. I was terrified, Forrest. Every single step of the way. But I had something worth protecting. You didn't just protect a company, he said, stopping under a streetlight, the light catching the kindness in his eyes. You stood for justice itself. He took my hand. It was just a simple, warm, strong hand. And in that warmth, I felt the ice that had been frozen around my heart for 2 long years finally, truly, begin to melt. It didn't take long for our partnership to evolve into something more. Something quiet, something steady. Something lasting. 1 year later, Forrest and I stood together in front of my father's grave. It was a beautiful spring day. Fresh flowers rested at the headstone. The sun was warm, and a gentle breeze rustled through the trees. Dad, I did it, I spoke to him in my heart, my hand held tightly in Forrest's. I protected your company. I protected our family. Just like you taught me, to protect what matters most. I closed my eyes, and I could almost imagine his voice whispering on the wind, "Well done, my girl." Standing beside me, Forrest gently wrapped his arm around my shoulders, and I leaned into his strength. I had once thought I'd lost everything. My fiancé. My sister. My company. My father. But what I really lost was only the illusion of love. The illusion of trust. From the darkness, from the ashes of my old life, I had found something real. The priceless inheritance my father truly left me, his strength, his integrity, his legacy. And the people, the real people, who helped me protect it. I used to believe that revenge created nothing. That it was just a destructive, empty force. But maybe that was only half true. Revenge born of pure hatred, yes, that can destroy everything. But a battle fought with pride, a battle fought to protect what you love, that kind of fight, it can create something new. Something strong. Something better. My real life began that day. The day I stood at the very edge of despair and chose to rise. I looked up. Above me stretched a sky so blue, so endless, so clear. And for the first time in a very, very long time, so was I.